Hello there, friends and RC family. My name is Alec from High Noon Hobbies, and if you're new to this channel, I very much appreciate you checking it out. I hope that you will stick around, watch at least this video, see if this content seems worth your while, and consider subscribing so that then I can say to you, if you aren't new here, welcome back to yet another Friday upload. This time we're doing something just a little bit different for the channel. Something different that I haven't necessarily seen on other channels as well, so I hope that you guys enjoy it. I always try to keep the content kind of fresh and engaging, and so I also really appreciate all of the feedback that I've been getting from you guys. Definitely, if you have an idea for a video, if you have something that you think would make a good one, leave it down in the comment section down below, or any feedback as to things that I'm doing that you think I could just improve on. I'd love to hear it. I do read all those comments. I do reply to them oftentimes, and I always take them under consideration, and they very often end up being basically applied in future videos. So I do appreciate that feedback, and keep leaving it down there because it helps me out very much. This time though, we are taking a look at two different chassis, and we're basically going to try to do as close to a one-to-one comparison between these two chassis as we can, and see if there are any differences or if one comes out on top. And now, it's not going to be a perfect comparison, but in terms of the actual comparative part of it between the two trucks, they're exactly the same. The only difference between the two trucks is the chassis itself. All of the same components were moved over from the first chassis on the first test to the second chassis on the second test, and we ran the exact same tests between the two trucks. Or we tried to run as close to the exact same tests as we could. Unfortunately, I didn't necessarily get all of the same angles on here, so you're going to have to bear with me on that one. But I tried to get to as close to as I possibly could the same angles, given that we had to do this, we had to obviously tear down a whole truck and rebuild it on a new chassis with all the same parts just to make this test happen, so there was a little bit of time in between the two tests. Luckily, we did manage to get pretty much the same or very similar weather on the two different tests, so that played in our favor. So yeah, besides that, this is basically all the same. We're going to be taking a look at the G-Speed, I believe it's the G-Speed V3 chassis, the TGH-V3. We're going to be taking a look at that compared to the Spare Time Hobbies V1. I don't know if the V1 that we were testing, I don't know if it was the V1S or the V1M. I'll try to get clarification on that and leave it down in the comments, or leave it down in the description down below. So without further ado, let's just get right into this comparison. I'm pretty excited to do it, and I hope that at the end of this quasi-scientific testing here, we'll have some sort of answer as to maybe what your next comp flat rail chassis should be. All right, well, let's get into it. All right, we're out here at 9th Street in Ogden, Utah, northern region of Utah. This is a pretty popular testing grounds for trucks, and a testing grounds that Cameron has used quite a few times to get to know different trucks, which means he knows the lines pretty well and can try to recreate them as best as he can, which is we're going to try to make this test as equivalent as we can. Starting out here with the Spare Time Hobbies chassis. This is actually the second test that we ran, but as you can see here, we're starting out relatively easy and we'll work our way into some more difficult terrain, but the Spare Time Hobbies chassis having no problem with this little dealio here. You'll notice a difference in the quality of the footage, and I do apologize for that. The first video that we were just watching with the Spare Time Hobbies was shot on a GoPro. This one here was shot on my iPhone. So you can see the quality comparison between these two chassis, and you also in this video get to see a quality comparison between the two different cameras or recording devices that I'm using here. So a fun little bonus comparison, I suppose. We're getting into a slightly more spicy line here. This one is a pretty articulate one. It definitely has quite a bit of articulation through that center section, and it's not on too much of a side hill, but there is a bit of a side hill, and then obviously you come out to the left here and you've got quite a decent climb to get up and out of the line. So the Spare Time Hobbies chassis really having no problem with it whatsoever, able to articulate right over, and the skid clearing just fine. I would say, if anything, the Spare Time Hobbies chassis may have seemed just a little bit more planted through this line, at least the bottom part of it. Now that I'm looking at the top part with the G-Speed going through, it seems like they are both about the same through there, and that could be a difference between just a tiny difference between the temperature on these 2 days. The Spare Time Hobbies chassis could have a tiny advantage here with just a slightly cooler day, making those rocks just a little bit more of the right temperature for these tires here. We're getting into a nasty little left-hand turn where you got to get up on your side here. I'm going to check and make sure that both of these chassis are looking nice and balanced and planted while they're going through. You can see that little hop there as the Spare Time Hobbies chassis comes around this corner, and we'll take a look at the G-Speed chassis, see if it does the same thing. Overall though, that looked planted the whole time. Weight distribution seemed good. It didn't seem to get particularly light on any one wheel, especially looking at those top two wheels, making sure that those are staying nice and grounded on that very steep face. Taking a look here at the G-Speed, let's see if we get the same, and we do get the same slide through there, maybe even a slightly more substantial slide. We'll take a look at this in a slow motion clip here and put them side by side and see just how different those two runs were. Both of them looking very planted upon the exit, able to make that turn in just about the same distance there. Does seem like the G-Speed could have lost just a little bit more ground on that slide. Now, not certain if that's chassis related or not, but that is something to take a closer look at if you're interested. Let's take a look at this next clip here. I decided to put this side by side right off the get-go here because it's just a bit of a hill climb. Cameron says he's never seen a truck be able to make it up this, or maybe there was only one truck that's ever made it up this particular section without a bump. So it's not surprising here that we're having to get bumps out of both of these trucks to get a grip on the rock. Now, I was talking about how the G-Speed was a slightly warmer day. This may be another one of the tests that's impacted by that, although I will say when Cameron applies more wheel speed to the G-Speed, it seems as though it's staying a bit more composed through here. Almost seems as though the inputs are more substantial. Smaller inputs are more substantial on the G-Speed throughout this ascent. Kind of an interesting observation there, although the Spare Time Hobbies is able to make it up and through the ascent before the G-Speed. So it's hard to tell what the differences were that caused that time differentiation. Could have just been the right hook at the right time there. Now, this line on 9th Street, anyone that's been there will know, this is a particularly difficult line. This one, even people that come here every single time, just finding the right line to get up here is disgusting. It's a very difficult process. And then once you find the line, it's really kind of mostly about getting your rear wheels right here into that right correct position where your left wheel, your driver rear pulls you up just a little bit while your passenger rear just kind of floats over to that edge. Spare Time Hobbies did not make that look too difficult. All trucks are going to have the same struggle at the beginning of this particular obstacle here. G-Speed is seemingly coming in just a little bit faster into finding that line, and again, it's hard to tell. It's always going to take a couple of tries to find that line. Hard to tell if you're just a little bit off on this one. And we can see G-Speed is coming in a little bit higher to the driver's side. Spare Time Hobbies is coming a little bit over to the passenger side, so that could have had something to do with it. The bump on both seems pretty good. Spare Time Hobbies might have had a little bit more skid clearance there. The bump just took it just a tiny bit further, so that's interesting. Now we've got another pretty decent ascent. We're going to work our way over to the passenger side here, and we're going to find a little chute and work our way up that chute. We're going to start out with the Spare Time Hobbies once again. We can see it's just doing fine on the side hill. It is starting to slide out and push just a little bit on the front. Cameron's having to apply a bit more driver side steering through that push up through the nasty side hill section there. We can see a little slide into that lower pocket as he comes across and pulling his way up, making it look pretty easy. Some skids, skid hanging there for just a moment. Hard to tell if that was diff or skid, but it did seem like it was skid for just a moment there. So now let's take a look at the G-Speed. Coming in, same exact entry, same slide. The rear might seem just I may be speaking too soon. I was going to say might seem just a bit more planted, but they both had the rear slide out just a hair. Does seem like the G-Speed is staying a bit more composed on that side hill, but it is very, very close. Very hard to tell. Very hard to tell on that one. Both making that look easy. Coming out, doesn't look like we're going to have any skid clearance issues with the G-Speed up there on the top. Now the second portion of this line, we're going to drop down from where we just came up on the right-hand side over in the next little gully. And we're going to work our way up this nasty ascent V-notch that has just a bunch of craggles all over the place. As you can see with the Spare Time Hobbies, he's coming in and he immediately bumped up to the wall and then took a reverse to line himself up. Once he gets himself lined up and squared up to the V-notch, we are getting light in the front. We're definitely getting light in the front, and as soon as he gets that hook, it pulls the truck back down. So obviously it's not too light. That was still controllable, but it did get a wee bit light in the front. Now G-Speed a little less controlled looking on the descent there, and that could just be a wheel speed thing. And then coming into the V-notch, he took his reverse there, you see, before he even bumped up to the wall in the G-Speed. So that could have lined him up better for this. You are seeing the passenger wheel getting that hook. It didn't seem like the driver got quite as light there, but it's hard to tell from the angle, unfortunately. Filming from the angle of the other angle there is quite unfortunate, because if I would have been filming from the same angle, probably would have been able to tell whether or not that driver's side tire got light on that ascent. Hard to know on that one, but it does seem from the footage itself that the Spare Time Hobbies was a little bit more unsettled than the G-Speed through that last one. Now this one, just you can see obviously here, a nice articulation test. And this is on basically a 10-foot or so cliff, so that's always fun when you've got a good line like that on about a 10-foot cliff. Oh, you can see it better from this side. G-Speed coming in from the top angle on the camera this time. Unfortunately, we're not going to get the articulation just quite as well, but it does seem to stay about as composed, maybe articulated a tiny bit less. It seemed as though there was a bit more drop once that front axle came over the breakover point. And now here, this last line, we tried this line several times between the two trucks. Neither truck was able to make this line, although it is probably important to note that the Spare Time Hobbies did make it substantially, maybe not substantially, but a good 2 to 2.5 inches further. We were able to take a lower approach to this breakover that the G-Speed's going over there. We were able to take a lower approach on the Spare Time Hobbies truck that we just couldn't quite achieve on the G-Speed. So that is something of note for sure, but neither truck was able to make it over this entire obstacle. So unfortunately, we got to end it on that. I'll let you draw your own conclusions as to who you think the winner is on this one, because I think it is very hard to tell. But I think maybe the lesson that I'm learning here could be that I need to take a look at the Spare Time Hobbies chassis a little bit more closely. I'm impressed here. This is good results. I mean, everyone knows G-Speed. Everyone, I think, at least, most of the people that I meet, especially in the comp scene, they are familiar with G-Speed. They know that G-Speed chassis perform well, but I don't see a ton of other variety, at least in our scene. I think I see a lot more G-Speed than I do anything else, and I'd love to, nothing against G-Speed whatsoever. I mean, obviously they've built their reputation for a reason. They make great chassis, and they perform very well, but I gotta give credit where credit's due. Spare Time Hobbies here, a company that until Cameron approached me with this particular comparison, I hadn't heard of. Now, granted, I'm new to the space, So take everything I say with a grain of salt. But if someone who's been in the hobby for nearly a year now hasn't heard about a company, that says something about the popularity of the product, at least in comparison to G-Speed, where I knew about G-Speed probably by the first or second month that I was in this hobby. So all that to say, sorry about that. All that to say, I feel like go out there, explore, find, what chassis works for you, what you enjoy, and you would be surprised how close all of these chassis can be. Now, Cameron's rig is dialed here. All of the parts that we swapped across from one chassis to the next, they are parts that he has been tuning for a very long time to get these results out of. So the fact that they're so close and the fact that they both performed really well isn't necessarily a big surprise, considering all of the time that Cameron has put into tuning this rig so far. If you're interested in seeing more of Cameron's kind of rig setups, I've actually got a video back from when we were in the North vs. South finals from this last season, where Cameron goes over in detail all of the parts on his rigs, why he made the decisions he did to put those parts on there, and well, that was a great video. It actually did really well, and I think people really enjoyed it, and I love to hear all the comments in the comment section on that video of everyone's opinions and the things that they picked up ended up applying to their own rigs. It was just a really fun one, so I'll leave the link to that somewhere, but guys, that's all I've got for you guys today. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and leave a like, hit that thumbs up button, and a comment if you haven't. Let me know what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy, what you like to see next time. And until then, we will see you on the next one. You have a wonderful crawling weekend. This is a long weekend. We have Monday off as well, and I believe we're going to be doing a live stream on Sunday, probably another one at the high noon hour. So go ahead and stay tuned to probably the Instagram, and I'll make a post on the YouTubes as well, but everyone always looks at the Instagram one first. So stay tuned to all the socials, and I will affirm those plans in the very near future. But until then, we'll see you next time. Cheers, guys.